Last week, I made a video about whether we need double tap to make a return to Cold War Zombies. At one point during the video, I talk about how surprised I was to see people actually asking for Mule Kick to come back. I mean, what else is next? Are we gonna ask for like Who's Who and Tombstone to come back? Aw man. The reason I didn't anticipate anyone missing Mule Kick is because Mule Kick has always been such an unpopular perk. What Mule Kick basically does is make it so that you can carry a third weapon. So what's wrong with that? Why was it so unpopular? To answer that question, let's take a closer look at how Mule Kick works. It's very simple. You have two weapons, you buy the perk, then the next weapon you buy is going to be your third weapon. If you go down, you will lose your perks, which means you will lose Mule Kick, which means you will also lose your third weapon. When you have Mule Kick and you have three weapons, there is no way for you to directly go from your first weapon to your third weapon. Because if you want to switch weapons, you press triangle. If you want to go from your first weapon to your third weapon, you have to press triangle twice. Now, unlike double tap, Mule Kick hasn't really had that much of a development over the years. It was first introduced in Black Ops 1, and from Black Ops 1 all the way to Black Ops 3, it stays the same without any changes whatsoever. And that's the version that people are gonna remember the most. That Mule Kick wasn't very popular. And the reason why is because it had a lot of fundamental issues in the way that it was implemented. The way it was designed was just too flawed. Mule Kick allows you to have a third weapon, but because you will lose Mule Kick if you go down, you will always be at the risk of losing that third weapon. And if that third weapon is something that is absolutely necessary for your survival, it essentially means that once you go down once, the game is pretty much over, because the chances of you recovering from that become too slim. Another problem was that it was kind of difficult to choose which weapon would be your third, because if you were going for a 3-weapon setup, it meant that you had to get the two most important weapons first, then you had to go buy Mule Kick, and then you could start hitting the box to get the third weapon that you wanted, and it was a little difficult to manage for the casual players. Another problem it had was that you couldn't see which weapon was your third. If you kept trading your guns over and over again, you could lose track of which gun is your third or your second, and the game had no way of telling you. It's a huge oversight, one that Infinite Warfare Zombies was able to solve by simply adding a little Mule Kick icon next to your third weapon to indicate that that is your third weapon, and if you go down, that's the weapon you're gonna lose. But by far the biggest problem with Mule Kick was that people were too hesitant to invest in a third weapon because it just made it that much more demoralizing to recover from a single down. And in Black Ops 4, they made somewhat of an effort to try and fix this issue by introducing a perk modifier for Mule Kick that allowed the player to get their third weapon back if they repurchased all 4 perks, including Mule Kick. But the problem with that was that people didn't want to give up their 1 perk modifier slot to Mule Kick. In that game, we had perks like Deadshot, Dying Wish, Victorious Tortoise, and Winter's Wail. And all of those perks had better modifiers than Mule Kick, and Mule Kick just simply couldn't compete. So they tried to make Mule Kick a good, reliable perk, but they just couldn't really succeed. Treyarch wasn't successful in making Mule Kick a perk that is capable of competing with the likes of Double Tap and PhD Flopper because Mule Kick, in my opinion, should not have been implemented as a perk at all. Which brings us to World War II Zombies, which in my opinion is the only game that ever got the concept of Mule Kick right. If Mule Kick was going to be so simple, if you weren't going to be able to move your weapons between the first, the second, and the third slot, if it was meant to be that bare bones, then it shouldn't have been a perk in the first place. And the people at Sledgehammer Studios understood that, and they gave us Mule Kick in the form of a mod that you could pick each game, which gave you the ability to have 3 weapons in that game regardless of how many times you went down. You no longer had to worry about losing your third weapon. You still had to kind of manage your weapons because switching between them was still identical to the old way, but now at least you didn't have to constantly worry about losing your third weapon. And that was great, by far one of the best gameplay mechanics that World War II Zombies has introduced, and it's one that I think should have stuck. Because let's be honest, Mule Kick as a perk was never ever good enough to compete with other perks, so why force it? Why continue to let it be a perk? And with all that being said, the question remains, do we need Mule Kick in Cold War Zombies? As you know, Cold War Zombies doesn't have a perk limit, so you no longer have to choose between perks. And a lot of people have been asking for Mule Kick to come back, but in reality, we don't really need Mule Kick. Yes, I understand that in order for you to get to a high round in D Machina, you have to use the ray gun and the wonder weapon, and Mule Kick would help you add a bullet weapon to your arsenal, but it's not necessary enough. However, if it is going to come back, and I have a feeling that it will, whether it'll be good or not depends on two things. One is how they're going to handle the different advantages that the tier upgrades of the perk are going to offer. And two is the way they're going to handle the loss of the third weapon once the player goes down. Maybe in Cold War Zombies you won't lose the third weapon permanently. Maybe when you go down it just drops on the floor, so if you're fast enough you can go and buy Mule Kick again and come back and pick up the weapon. Or maybe you will lose it and when you buy Mule Kick again, you'll get it back just like in Black Ops 4. And also I would love to have the ability to move my weapons to different slots to make switching between the two weapons that I use the most a little faster and a little more convenient. But I don't think that's something we're gonna get. So do we need Mule Kick in Cold War Zombies? No, not really. Would it still be nice to have since there are no perk limits? Yeah. But if we do get it and it turns out to be good, will I still be a happy boy? Yes. So there you have it. That is gonna do it for today's video. Let me know in the comment section down below whether you think we need Mule Kick to come back. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Across the fields, across the plains, he ran so fast he dodged the rain.
He was a hero. He hurried in to save the day. Gun in hand, and thrice they say. He was strong like a mule. He was stubborn like a mule. He even kicked like a mule.